How would you characterize human rights dialogue and issues raised? Can you say on this, sir?
The human rights dialogue held last week here in Yerevan is a regular feature in the contacts between the European Union and Armenia. The dialogue was conducted in a very open, frank and cooperative atmosphere. We discussed very openly all the issues on the human rights agenda. It is no secret that the most important issue discussed was the preparations to the 2017 national elections and the work on the electoral code in Armenia.
Now, during the dialogue, have you raised some kind of issues which, issues of human rights violations here in Armenia?
We discussed the whole spectrum of issues. So, as I said, the most important item on the agenda was the implementation of the constitutional reforms and the work on the electoral code. But we discussed also the situation of the vulnerable groups, the rights of women, the rights of children. We discuss issues of domestic violence. We discuss issues related to non-discrimination. We discuss also individual cases. As a separate issue, we address the topic of investigating the allegations of irregularities during the last referendum, constitutional referendum. But we raise also the issue of the 2008 tragic events in Armenia and the need to clarify the issues and to bring all the responsible to the accountability. We also handed over a number of individual cases.
For example?
Names of people whom we believe the Armenian authorities should pay very close attention, because these individual cases are not good for the image of Armenia.
If it's possible, could you please provide some kind of examples? I mean, names or names?
I wouldn't like to discuss this topic in public, because part of the success of this dialogue is that we do it in a very open spirit, but in a confidential way. So there are issues I wouldn't discuss in public, but it will not be a secret that we raised the issue of an activist who was detained on New Year's Eve and who is in pretrial detention, whose pretrial detention, we believe, is excessive, is not commensurate with the situation in which he is implicated. And we raise also a number of other issues of people who are in prison, who we believe are not treated in a commensurate way.
Have you discussed the National Human Rights Action Plan and the EU support to the Armenia's reform efforts?
Yes, the Human Rights Action Plan was on the agenda. The general message that we send as the European Union is the following. Armenia has very good plans, but it needs more action. There is abundance of plans, but there is some deficit of action. Therefore, for what is the most important for us is to focus our shared attention on the implementation of these plans, on monitoring this implementation, and bringing concrete results from the plans. So yes, we discuss human rights plan. We discuss the link between the plan and the human rights support program, a big support program signed last year by the European Union, worth 12 12 million euros, which deals with 5 areas of human rights. The new elements in this human rights support program are that some of the legislation that Armenia is planning to adopt is linked to concrete benchmarks. Like, for instance, Armenia committed itself through this human rights budget support program to adopt law on domestic violence by the end of 2016. Armenia committed itself to adopt the law on non-discrimination by the end of 2017. And this is the new elements that our human rights support program brings into the discussion on human rights in Armenia.
How the result of the dialogue fits into the overall EU-Armenia cooperation, EU-Armenia negotiations?
This dialogue is very important because, as stated by the President of Armenia and other leaders of this country, Armenia wants to build relations with the European Union on the basis of common values. And these common values are human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Therefore, if we want to have a strong relationship between Armenia and the European Union, the factor of human rights, the factor of democracy and the rule of law is important. Therefore, we need to make progress, because making progress on human rights by Armenia will help to solidify this common basis of our relations.
It's a very interesting point because you, I mean, European Union and Armenian authorities, you are talking very much on human rights, on democracy, but in Armenia we know very well that we got very interesting elections, referendums. So what can you say on this? I mean, there is a reality and there is announcements. So,
as I said, the preparations to the 2017 national elections were in the focus of the discussion, because for the European Union, the next elections are crucial for the future of Armenia. The next elections will determine the model of political governance and also the model of relationship between the authorities and the society at large. Therefore, we had a very frank discussion where we simply made it clear that we would wish the next elections to be held according to the best standards, not only in this region of South Caucasus, but the best European standards, to the extent possible. For this reason, we would encourage the authorities to conduct a very inclusive dialogue with the opposition and with the civil society. Armenia needs a frank discussion between all interested parties, the ruling coalition, the opposition, and civil society. Armenia needs a round table, political round table, to build a national consensus around the next elections. So we hope very much that there will be an inclusive dialogue inside Armenia, and also that all the recommendations by the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe and the OSCE, which will be prepared in the weeks to come, will be taken into account and will be reflected in the electoral code.
But if you will not have democratic elections based on best practice, as you mentioned, what kind of influence it will have on EU-Armenia relations, on EU attitude toward Armenia?
I have mentioned it several times during my work here in Armenia that we proceed from the need to have a positive agenda. Therefore, we want to work on the basis that there is a will to improve the standard of elections in Armenia. We have heard many declarations by members of the government, by the leaders of Armenia, that Armenia will have better elections. Armenia will have elections on the basis of the electoral code, which will meet all the necessary criteria and requirements, and will be negotiated on a very wide, inclusive basis. So we hope for the best, and we work on the assumption that these declarations are sincere, and I think that this is the only logic that we can adopt in the present circumstances. So yes, we believe that there is a wish from all sides of the parties involved in the political life of Armenia to improve the political governance in Armenia.
Could you elaborate a bit more on the agenda items related to the anti-corruption efforts?
We had also last week, in addition to the human rights dialogue, we had a subcommittee on justice, freedom and legal affairs. And two items dominated the agenda. One is the reform of justice, and the other is fight against corruption. We discussed it at length. Armenia needs a breakthrough in its fight against corruption. We have, again, a number of good documents. We have a strategy, we have an action plan, we have a body, anti-corruption body chaired by the Prime Minister, but we need results. So we have plans, but we need action. Armenia, unfortunately, last year slipped from position number 94 to 95 on the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, while its neighbor, Georgia, climbed from 52 to 50. And Georgia is a good example that even with the legacy of the past years, even within the same level of income per capita, it is possible to make decisive steps and to make a breakthrough. For Armenia, fight against corruption is probably one of the most important tasks. Again, a task which would require national consensus, which would require the unity of all political forces, because without fighting corruption, the progress in all possible aspects, economic, political, social, is hardly to imagine. So we send these messages very clearly. We received very detailed presentations from the Armenian side, very frank assessments sometimes. We expect action. And the most important things are, of course, changing law, changing legislation, including all the necessary standards of the fight against corruption which exist in European practice, and also the establishment of an independent anti-corruption body with investigative powers according to the best standards of Europe and the West in general.
But in Armenia, anti-corruption body headed by Prime Minister, so you are talking about independent body, but...
We are talking about an independent investigative body. There are different models. The European Union is supporting a project with civil society, with experts, to suggest the possible solution for Armenia. There are different examples of such independent investigative anti-corruption agencies, starting from the first in Singapore, in Hong Kong, going through Western experience, also transitional countries experience, Poland, Romania. All these countries have developed such independent institutions. Not headed by administrative branches of power.
Is it crucial for anti-corruption steps, anti-corruption fighting? I mean, to have an independent, not headed by representative of authorities?
Well, this agency will always be a part of the system of governance. It will have to be put into the structure of the executive branch. But it would have to be separate from political influence. It will have to be separate from political appointments. It will have to be totally independent from the governmental, ministerial, and other structures.
Can we say that without independent body we cannot get real results on in anti-corruption?
There are different scenarios. I have spoken many times in public how to address the issue. You can try to do some measures in selected branches, and it's also possible. I wouldn't probably believe that Armenia necessarily should follow the path of Georgia concerning the fight against corruption in the judiciary or in the police, which in Georgia took a very radical form, as you all remember, by totally renewing the composition of the police of the judiciary. Probably Armenia doesn't have to apply the same radical approach, but it is possible to look into different sectors and to focus there. There are very concrete ideas for the fight against corruption, for instance, in the education, in the tertiary education, university education, prepared by good experts under the auspices of the Council of Europe and funded by the European Union. There are recommendations made by civil society concerning the secondary education. There is, I understand, also a pilot project financed by the international community in some secondary schools, which would include the fight against corruption, which the government supports. So even these sectoral measures, if implemented quickly, decisively, can bring some results. So I wouldn't say that the establishment of this independent body is a condition sine qua non, condition without which you cannot move forward. No, there are different scenarios. But what is necessary also for the population, for the society at large, that they can see quickly results. So we are encouraging the government, look at these sectors, and the action plan singled out certain priority sectors, but act decisively. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And by the way, when I said this expression, the Justice Minister quickly said, I agree with you. We do not have to reinvent the wheel because there are enough good examples around. Simply, there should be a political decision. Yes, we should be doing it.
Is it political issue, anti-corruption? I mean,
I think it is a political issue since the president himself, in his very important speech in February, mentioned the same issues that we, as the European Union, are emphasizing. Fight against corruption and the independence of judiciary. The February speech of the president is a speech which can be the basis for resolute action.
Why I raise these questions? Because you know very well that many people here in Armenia don't believe that the representatives of ruling party, of authorities, which relatives you know have big businesses in this country, can fight corruption. So you as a person, do you believe that men which I don't know, which have businesses can really do real steps against corruption?
Armenia, to be successful in its further development, for sure has to draw a very clear line between politics and business. That's also the experience of many transitional countries. the link between business and politics can be very damaging for the development of both the political model of governance, also the economic model of governance. So that is something that Armenians, now having the opportunity to implement the constitutional changes, should pay a very close attention to. But as I said in some of my public statements, the presence of rich people and business people in public life, in government, in the parliament, is not bad in itself. There are other countries where rich people are there. Look at now the electoral campaign in some other countries. You have millionaires running for big jobs. So it's not bad in itself. But what is necessary is to have clear rules for avoiding the conflict of interests. Clear rules for transparency of your economic activities in the past, and of course withdrawal from active economic activities when you are in a public function. And it's not only you, but also the transparency concerning your family, your extended family, etc., etc. These are clear rules which exist in many countries. Avoiding conflict of interest, transparency. Because if there is a suspicion that you are using your job as a minister or as a parliamentarian to create better conditions for your own personal business activities, nobody in Armenia or in any other country will believe that you are acting in the interest of the whole nation. But when you have a very transparent and very strict rules on the conflict of interest, then even very rich people can be trusted, because people will understand, okay, they have some wealth, but they are not in the government to make themselves richer or to protect their wealth.
And last question, Mr. Ambassador. Are you concerned that after negotiations with Armenia, the new framework agreement will not be signed? And in that case, what will be a European Union attitude toward Armenia?
We conduct all negotiations on the basis of good faith. As I explained, for the European Union, I cannot imagine a situation where the European Union would start a negotiation and then said at the end, sorry, we have just changed our position and now we are no longer interested. So I believe that now these issues of what are the possibilities for the relationship between Armenia and the European Union are clear. And we negotiate on the basis of clear statements by the president, by the leaders of this country. So we do not have any B scenario or C scenario. What happens if there is then again a complicating factor.
But last time we also hadn't any bad scenarios, but you know very well what kind of results we had after long-term negotiations.
Well, I think that last time was the last time, meaning it will never be repeated. I can only hope that the proper lessons have been drawn from that experience, and we are now in a process where this experience will prevent us from going through the same situation again. So if you ask me, I am quite confident that we will have a good document, because there is nothing in this document which would complicate Armenia's life within the Euro-Asian Economic Union. At least the political part, the trade part, and some of the sectoral parts are clearly on the level that should not be seen as being difficult for Armenia in any way, quite the contrary. So we are where we are, and we want a good, fruitful process. And the signals that we are receiving from the Armenian negotiators are constructive. So why assume a bad scenario again? One time is enough.
Okay, thank you very much for this interview.
My pleasure.